Oh no, it's so dark out here. Welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm taking you on a trip of a lifetime. We're doing a designer spotlight. That's right, we've put it in the air. We are calling all designers. I love the idea of highlighting designers on the channel. And there's one that we have not highlighted yet, who's done amazing work. I met him 2 or 3 years ago or so, and we had lunch, and we talked about the idea of a go-out game or a shedding game, a climbing shedding game. It is Mashikamaru, the amazing Mashikamaru, who is the designer of so many wonderful games. 2 that we're going to cover today. So we have Sumida River and Iyadosu. We're going to be covering them. The hooks are, this is a climbing shedding game where you can only play a certain meld once per trick. So it's kind of like must not meld. You know of must not follow, like Potato Man and Aurum. This is kind of like must not meld. So we're kind of a wild concept, but we'll go into the details of it soon during the teach. And then Iyadosu. Again, a wild concept where the premise is once you get dealt your hand, you can't rearrange it. And starting from the right, you're going to move this little card, as many cards as you want, to the left. But the number of cards you pass, kind of that are going to be to the right of where you're going to put that card, that special card, is going to kind of be your bid. What's interesting is the cards to the left of that card are must follow. The cards to the right are kind of may follow in a wild way. It reminds me of Voodoo Prince on a drug that boosts it. Steroids? That's the word. Okay. But he's done so much more like Phanotrick and Trick Pages. But these, I believe, are going to be a little bit far out, because this one is a giant book and is a solo trick-taking game, I believe, that needs a lot of translation. This sounds amazing, though. A little bit mathematical trick-taking. And also he did Must Not Lie, which I've played before. And the premise of that one is absolutely wild. It's where someone will lead a card, and it's kind of like just a word, like macaroni or something. And then other players are going to be playing other cards like Monster Truck or Leaf Blower. And it's going to be a discussion-based game, and you're trying to see who followed the lead suit more. So if the lead suit was macaroni, you're kind of like, what card is more like macaroni? It's definitely is this a trick-taking vibe? Maybe we'll cover that in the future. But for now, we just want to celebrate Iyadosu and Sumida River and the wonderful Mashikamaru. A little bit of a fun story. I actually went out, the first time I met Mashikamaru was when we were corresponding over Twitter, and it was after Tokyo Game Market one year, and we went out and just had lunch, and we had a wonderful chat about the idea of what is a climbing shedding game. And I said the word shed. I kept saying the word shed a lot, and shedding. And he was like, what are you talking about? Because, there's like a shed, like a physical shed, and also like shedding your clothes. And I was kind of like, oh, like getting rid of things? Like, yeah, like shedding your clothes kind of. And then it was great because next time we hung out, he had Sumida River. And I think this is not only a wonderful addition to climbing shedding, but I think it's a Mashikamaru addition to climbing shedding, which I just love. This is so him. And this time we also had a wonderful hangout. I had a booth at Tokyo Game Market, and we chatted about the booth stuff before and after. I saw him twice, which was so great. We got to play Of What's Left with him, and he was so kind to write a wonderful, wonderful blog post that still moves me to this day, just his kind words. And he was such a sweet person. He was helping me sell Of What's Left. He reached out and was like, hey, how are things going? Like, I hope you sold out. Just an amazing person. So even if all that removed, I think his designs are going to speak for themselves once we get to the table, and I'll show you how they play. But I just want to say, Mashikamaru is the first person on our designer spotlight. Many more to come from him. I cannot wait to see what he does. And also, I cannot wait to keep doing this series where we cover more and more designers. Alrighty, let's go to the table, and I'll teach you how to play Iyadosu and Sumida River. Hey, interjecting Taylor here. I'm at the final thoughts, and since I've recorded the intro and am now recording the final thoughts, the BGG Podcast has come out with Candice, the amazing Candice, and I are talking about the trick-taking retreat that we just went on, T9, and we talk about Iyadosu and Sumida River on there. So definitely check that out, especially hearing Candice's thoughts on Sumida River. It was so fun to talk to her. That whole episode was absolute joy. I always get so nervous with podcasts. As you can tell, this is an edited video. And as you could tell, if you could see my camera roll, I do a lot of takes. I do a lot of flubs. I swallow. I cough. I do a lot of takes. I do a lot of flubs. And so, especially dead air. I'm always so nervous to do podcasts, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. So definitely check it out. Candice is just amazing. And you can see wonderful, wonderful more trick taking. Hopefully it takes over the entire world. Won't that be the dream? Thank you so much, and we'll get you back to the intro. Take it away, Taylor. The deck in Sumida River is ranked 3 through 10, and the number of the rank is how many cards are in the deck. So there's 3 3s, 4 4s, 5 5s, all the way up to 10 10s. It's usually split equally between black cards and red cards. Like as you can see for 6s here, there's 3 black and 3 reds. If there's ever an odd number, there's more black than red. And there is only one red 3, which is the start player in the game. Here we have a game of Sumida River set up for 4 players. In the center here, you're going to have where players are going to be playing cards. These are the different melds that they can play, which I'll explain during the trick play. Each player is going to get dealt 13 cards, no matter the player count. So at 3 player, there's going to be 13 left over. And no matter the player count, each player is going to get 4 wild cards, 2 red wilds and 2 black wilds, with kind of just art on one side, but then also the reminder of the suit and the wilds on the other side. The game is broken up into 2 phases. There's a trading phase and then a climbing shedding phase. In the trading phase that happens first, players are going to simultaneously either go thumbs up or thumbs down. And this means, yes, I want to trade my hand, or no, I want to keep my hand. And players, once they reveal, all the players who said yes are going to be trading their hands, and all the players who say no are going to just hold on to theirs. So let's say, for example, all the players put into their hands, and maybe Rhino and Lion here are going to say no. So they're going to keep their hands. But the blueberry pig and this bearded rat person both said yes, they want to trade their hands. So of the players remaining, they're going to swap hands. Before they swap hands, players are going to be adding one of their wilds to the hand. So there could be a strategic reason for which type of wild you add, like maybe looking at the bearded person's hand, they think, oh, a red wild would help them out more than a black wild, so they are going to add a black wild. And the blueberry person is going to do the same. They're going to add a wild to the hand, and then they're going to swap the hands. So that hand, if that was once the blueberry pig's hand, is going to go to this scarfed up individual, and then the scarfed individual is their hand with the now added wild is going to go to the blueberry. So then what's great is the players who traded are going to vote again. So then those 2 players that traded are going to go 1, 2, 3, go. And maybe the blueberry person wants to trade again, but the scarf person does not. When there's only one person who wants to trade, they get to add any number of wilds in front of them into the hand. So maybe they just add 1. After either everyone's good, because this could have been, they both could have said keep. If they both said keep, no one adds any more wilds, and then you just continue on to the climbing shedding phase. Or if only one person said trade, like Blueberry did there, they're going to add their wilds, and now we're all good. A reminder of things down the line: if you don't have any wilds in front of you anymore, you can't trade. You have to keep your hand. So these are kind of a resource that you have to pay attention to, because players only get 4 wilds for the whole game. So if you use them all up early, you won't be able to trade later on in the game. Also, if multiple people say trade, you just pass clockwise. So if Blueberry Pig, Rhino, and the Scarf person said trade, and not the Lion, Blueberry would pass to Rhino, Rhino would pass to Scarf, Scarf would pass to Blueberry. And again, they would look at their hands and re-vote, with the Lion one being out. Once the trade phase is done, we're going to go into the climbing shedding phase, and it's going to start with the player who has the red 3, which is the Rhino up here. They can play to any of the melds that they want. So the things they can play are a single black, a single red. So maybe they start off by playing a red single 3. So now for the rest of the trick, until everyone passes or isn't allowed to play, no one can play a single red. They've played that meld, that is done. So then it moves on. So it goes to the bearded fellow over here. So maybe they are looking at that and they want to play to the single black. In this game, it's a climbing shooting game, but you can play the same number. So they're going to play the 3. And what you're climbing on is the most recently played thing. So it's this 3 here. Coming to the lion over here, they have to play on one of these melds, or they can always pass. One thing to note, it is a hard pass game, meaning if a player passes, they can't come back in. So if they pass, they're out of the trick until it wipes and a new trick is started. So since these singles are blocked up, what else can they play? They can play a black pair, a 2 red run, or a 3 black run with a little caveat, or a 3 pair with a little caveat. And then I'll explain the 4 ones in a little bit. Maybe they have 2 7s and they want to play a black pair. So they're going to play 2 7s there. So coming to the blueberry pig, what's interesting is now they have to play 7s or higher. So maybe when they're looking at their cards, they wanted to do a 2-card run, they would have to play higher than a 7. So they can't play like that red 5 and 4 because it's below the 7 and they're climbing off the 7. So now maybe they're thinking, let's play a 3 black run, because you can play to any of them. It's not like you have to red black like we've kind of been doing. So then they can't play this 6 7 8 because when you do a run it's the lowest and 6 is below 7, but they could do the 7 8 9. So they're going to play the 7 8 9 there. So that is a run of 3 black. So now it goes to the rhino. Maybe they're just going to pass. It comes to the scarf person. They want to play a run of 2 red. Again, it's going off the 7 because it's the lowest, but they're just going to play the 10 9. So now the 9 is the thing to beat. So if they wanted to play over here, the lion player, they'd have to play, 3 9s or 3 10s. And as you can see, they don't have 3 red 9s or 3 red 10s. But we're going to go into what makes this special here is on both sides, you are allowed to add 1 card of another color. So for example, in this 3 black run, one of these could have been red. Or look at their hand now, knowing that they have 2 red 9s and they have a black 9. So they are able to play this validly because it's the same number or higher than the number that we're climbing on, which is 9. Also, it's 3 of a kind, as you can see here, and they're allowed to have 1 black. So this could be 3 red 9s or 2 red 9s and a black 9. So then it goes on to the next player. And mind you, we have just been doing this in order because that's a little bit easier to teach, but it could have been, those could have been played first, and then those could have been played second, and then that would have blocked these, obviously. But you don't have to play building up. That's just kind of how we did it for the teach. So let's say the blueberry pig passes and the rhino passes and this scarf person passes. This would clear, and so all these cards would be wiped, and now these can all be played again. So the person who didn't pass, the lion, is going to lead, and maybe they start us off with 2 black pair. And then maybe this player, they have red 10s, and we'll start to explain these. These are wilds, and they can be any number. So this could be a black 10, and they could play it there. Because again, you're allowed to play at least 1 black, or at most 1 black, to the section here. So now they're climbing off 10s. So coming to the rhino here, they could play a single black 10. And then coming to this player here, they could play a red 10. As you can see, the kind of flow can be, or the melds that you play can kind of go in any order. So maybe if everyone passed, this would, again, wipe, and it would go back to the last played person, the bearded person here. One thing to note, the wilds are always the lowest thing possible. So if, I don't know why you would do this, but if the bearded person player played here, this would be like a 3. Like it's one of the lowest things. So like a later player can play whatever they want. They could play that. Or if this was a run like this, so you notice how this is a 2-card run. If they play that there, that would be a 6. So it's always just the lowest thing that they're playing off of. Last thing to explain are the 4s over here. Both of these have a special power. So we're going to cover the black one first. So the black one is 4 of a kind. The special thing about the 4 of a kind, if someone plays there, like if someone did this, they have the choice to end the trick immediately. So if they did that, they could end it. So if the pig had played that, they could choose to end it immediately, which would stop the rhino from maybe, playing, if they had it, a 10 black, over here or something. So maybe they played that there and they say, nope, I'm going to stop it immediately, which would wipe this. And then that player who played onto there can then wipe it and play and lead into the start of the next trick. The last thing to explain is the 4 red over here. So let's say it comes to the lion and they played over here. This allows a player, if they want to, and if they have at least 2 cards in their hand, to be able to discard any card from their hand. So if they just played here, and these were the cards left in the lion's hand, maybe they don't want this 4, and they can discard that out of the game. Why you have to have at least 2 cards left is you can't shed with this move. You can't just be like play, and then have 1 card left and shed. You have to have at least 2, so again, you just won't be able to shed with it. And that is also optional. Both of these are optional. Play like this is going to continue until all the players are out, and then you're just going to get points depending on how quickly you go out. So first place is going to get 3, second place is going to get 2 points, third place is going to get 1 point, and the last place gets 0. And that's at 4 players. At 3 players, first place is 2 points, then second place is 1 point, then last place is 0. At the end of the round, you're just going to shuffle and re-deal. The important thing is you only play rounds per player, and you don't get these wilds back. So once you use a wild in a round, it goes out of the game. So again, these are your lifeblood for trading, but also the huge thing is, at the end of the game, most points wins. But if you're tied, it's the player with the fewest wilds. So you're incentivized to use the wilds early. And that's how to play Sumida River. And if you're still tied after that, it's a shared victory. The deck in Iyadosu is 4 suits numbered 1 through 15. The black suit is the trump suit, and depending on the player count, you're going to remove cards. As you can see, the pips on the bottom here will dictate which cards you'll use at certain player counts. Like the 13 through 15 is 5 players, and then the 10 and through 12 is going to be included at 4 players. Here we have a game of Iyadosu set up for 4 players. No matter the player count, you're going to shuffle and deal the cards evenly, so 12 cards to each player. Players cannot rearrange their cards, which is really important. Also, each player is going to get a bidding card with 1 through 4 on one side and then 5 and 6 on the other side. When they bid, they're just going to face it to themselves. Like if Pikachu and Charmander over here bid 4, they do this. If they did 3, they kind of face it. So they're kind of reading the bid, right? So that would be 2 in this case. And they're also going to get an I refuse card, which I'll show how to use it later. So simultaneously, players are going to be looking at their hands without rearranging them, and they're going to be kind of trying to guess how many tricks they think they're going to win. Starting to the right of the start player, let's say it's the champagne person here, they are going to bid on the number of tricks they think they're going to win. And how they bid is they're going to first, flip their card to which number they think they're going to bid. Looking at their hand, they have some okay cards, black is trump, and some meh cards. Let's say they think they're only going to take 2 tricks. So what they're going to do is they're going to make sure their bid is at 2. They're going to take this card here, and they're going to slot it 2 from the right of from the rightmost card. You can't bid 0, and you can't bid over 7, as you can see by the card here. So they bid 2. So they're going to go 1, 2. They're going to slot this card in 1, 2. After they do that, after the player bids and slots their card in here, they can then rearrange. Like if you're a player who wants colors to be next to each other, you can totally do that, like right like this or something. And so after that player does it, again, you're going to go counterclockwise from the start player. So again, if it's Pikachu Charmander as a start player, we're going to go around this way. Now this player is going to bid. Let's say they're looking at their hand. Maybe they want to bid 4. So they're going to, again, go 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to put their card there, 4. And again, you can rearrange now. They can, put those together and then come over here and put like these together, right? But they have to make sure they do not move that right there. In addition, if they bid 4, they're going to make that kind of legible to them, 4. So all players are going to do that. And then the start player is going to lead. So as you can see, Porco Rosso bid 1, Charmander and Pikachu bid 5. Woo! And so if they're going to lead, as you can see, their card is 5 into the thing. So they have 5 cards over here. They're going to sort their hand just a little bit because they want to. So how the game works is cards to the left of the arrow, so over here, are going to be kind of normal cards. They are must follow, and they're the only cards you can lead with, and they're kind of normal in so many ways. And the cards to the right of the arrow are going to be kind of may follow in a little bit of an interpretation of may follow. We'll kind of get into that in a little bit. So let's just say it is Pikachu's turn. They have to lead. They're going to have to lead with one of these cards. So maybe they lead with this black 1. 1 is trump, mind you. So Porco, coming to Porco, they have to follow suit. So they're looking at their hand. They would have to play this 10 if they wanted to. So when it comes to your turn, you can do one of a few things. So if you have a card of the same suit that's led to the left of your arrow, you can either follow suit, which means you'll play one of those cards. So if they had 2 black cards, they could, choose which one they want to play. If they only have 1, like they do in this case, they'd, have to play it. Or if you have a card in the suit that was led, you could say, I refuse. And you can play one of your cards on the right. Why you would want to do that or wouldn't want to do that is going to be evident soon. But for now, let's just follow suit. So Porco Rosso is going to follow suit. Coming to side duck here. Again, they could, if they want to, play that black 6, but let's say they're going to refuse, just to show something off. So they say, I'm going to refuse, and they can play whatever they want. Even if they had a black card over here, they wouldn't have to play it. For now, they're just going to play that. So they said, I refuse. And then coming to the champagne player, let's say they say, I refuse as well, because as you can see over here, they have a black over here, so they can refuse. They actually have 2 blacks, so they could play the 4 or the 8, or they could say, I refuse, and they can play one of these over here. Again, these are may follow, so they don't have to play this one. So maybe they're going to say, I refuse, and they're going to play that. Then the trick's going to evaluate. It's going to be highest of the lead suit, unless there's trump, but then it's highest trump. Since this was lead and it's trump, it's going to be highest of the trump over here. So Porco Rosso is actually going to take the trick. What's funny is that was the one trick they wanted to take, so they're already a little bit nervous. So then they are going to lead to the trick. Again, they have to lead with one of these over here. Maybe they lead a low green. So coming back to side duck over here, let's say they say, I refuse. And because they have the lead suit, so they're going to say, I refuse, and they're going to go there. Coming to champagne, if they didn't have any of the lead suit, like let's say they didn't have this 2, just for this example here, they couldn't, they couldn't say I refuse, because the only way you can do that is if you have one of the lead suit. Since they don't have any of that suit to the left of their arrow, they can't say I refuse and play this, right? They would have to play one of these. Maybe they need 2 tricks and they want to trump in here. So if you don't have any of the lead suit, you just play one of your cards on the left of your arrow off suit. Coming to Pikachu Charmander here, they're looking at their hand and they have one of the cards. So they either have to play that, or again, they can refuse. Let's say they refuse. So they are going to refuse, and they can play any card over here, and let's say they want to trump in. So they kind of used their ability to refuse over here to actually be able to play trump when they could have followed suit. Very interesting. So now they are going to win this trick. This is a little wacky. I hope the flow is a good way to teach. We're going to do one more example here. Let's say, again, they lead trump, coming to Porco Rosso. So we know that Porco Rosso doesn't have trump anymore. So they can't say I refuse and play that. So they are just going to slough offsuit one of those cards. Coming to side duck here, they are going to follow suit. And then coming to champagne, they are going to say I refuse, because they have the lead suit and they want to actually go out, which I'll explain in a little bit. So if they say I refuse, that means they had, the lead suit. They pick the only card they can. They're going to go there. So what's interesting is, the second you don't have any of these to the right, you have now gone out in a way. So you're going to take that card, you're going to flip it, and put it on a stack in the center of the table. So now Champagne only has normal cards. They're going to collect the trick like normal, and they can still, win tricks, still participate. They are still fine. They have just essentially gone out, which is good, because for the scoring, there's ways that you could mess up, which we'll get to in a little bit. So then they have the lead, and they are just going to, play a normal trick-taking game. They have just normal must follow hand now. Jumping a little bit ahead, it comes to Porco over here. They also have the lead suit, and they have one card left. They are also going to refuse. So when you refuse, you are again going to take your card, flip it, and you're actually going to stack it on top of any other people who have gone out before you. This is very important for scoring. So players will keep going. Let's say side duck here, even though they could have refused, they don't want to, and they just want to play into the trick. And so I have to make sure it's the right side up. But so then it's highest lead suit wins, so that's going to be Pikachu over here. Let's jump forward now into a later trick. Here we are later in the hand, and Pikachu's turn to lead. Let's say they play the fans. Since Porco Rosso is out, they are just playing a must-follow game. They're going to play that. So when it comes to side duck over here, they're getting a little bit nervous, because as you can see, they only have a 1 suit left over here, and they can only refuse if they have the lead suit, which they don't. So they're going to just have to be able, or they're just going to have to play off suit. If this kept going, like let's say this was a later trick, and they had to do this, and they had to do this, and if they get to a situation where they have no cards over here to play normally into the trick, and they only have refuse cards, like they pushed their luck too much, they actually went out and busted. So immediately, in the middle of the hand, If that happens, they are just out. And they're going to flip their card and kind of just show that they're out. They don't put it on the stack over here, they're just out. So that player is effectively eliminated. And actually the round ends when either all 12 tricks have been completed, or all players have been eliminated, or all but one player has been eliminated. That will end the round. So let's jump forward to scoring. Here we are at the end of the round, and if you're eliminated, you just get 0 points. So side deck over here just gets 0 points, no matter anything else that you did. Then players are going to get 1 point for each insert card below yours. So as you can see over here, so the great person went out first. They don't have anyone below them, so they get 0 points for that. As opposed to Porco Rosso, who actually had the gray player under them, so they went out after the gray player. They're going to get 1 point. And then the purple player has 2 below them, so they're going to get 2 points. Then each player that didn't get eliminated is going to get a point for every player that went and got eliminated this round. So these 3 players are going to get a point because this green player got eliminated. However, before players get those points, they're going to lose points depending on how much they miss their bid. So if they didn't miss their bid at all, like Porco over here, they don't lose any points. So Porco would get 1 for the eliminated, 1 for being above gray by going out after gray. So they're going to get 2 points. However, the purple over here, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tricks. They only bid 5, so they're going to lose a point. So even though they went out later and got 2, and then 1 for eliminated for 3, they were off their bid by 1, so actually they only got 2. Finally, coming to Champagne over here, they bid 2, they got 3, so they're -1. They didn't have anyone below them, and they only got 1 point for the person eliminated, so they got 0 points this round. You can't get minus, so let's say Champagne actually got 4 tricks. They would be at -1, but you can't get minus for a round, so they would still get 0 in this case if they got 4 tricks. And that's generally how to do the scoring. One important note is if you're the only one who made it, like let's say this player and this player got eliminated and the gray person was there, it doesn't matter how off your bid is, you still get a bunch of points. So in this case, even if they were off by 2 tricks, they would get 1, 2, 3 for the number of players eliminated, 0 because no one's below them, but they wouldn't lose any points over here. So they actually would have gotten 3 points in this example. So if you're the only one who didn't get eliminated, you actually totally get points. Then you'll shuffle up and deal and play rounds per player, and then whoever has the most points at the end wins. And that's how to play Iyadosu. So that is Sumida River and Iyadosu. Before I go into final thoughts, remember Mashikamaru is a pal of mine, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. That said, I really like these games a lot. So let's do Iyadosu first. Interesting theme, kind of being a server in an den, I think, of sorts. I don't know, not 100% sure. Also, I have had more than one conversation when playing this game about the idea that fonts on cards being different is a bit distracting. I've had some players bounce off of that. And also the colors go from olive to green to pastel blue. You know, like there's not much separating. So sometimes I think the graphic design was a little tough on some players. Also, this is, getting to the gameplay, this is a razor thin game. You are eking out points. 3 points is huge in this game. I have played with players that don't like that. The fact that everything, you know, is relying on this very like tight rope walk that you have to do. I personally love it. There is something though that I think this game shines more at 4 players than 3, and 5 players also is very nice, because you want more people that can go out in front of you and you can have that fun little push and pull. I said earlier it kind of reminds me of Voodoo Prince, or I think I said earlier. If I didn't, it reminds me of Voodoo Prince, in that you're pushing your luck, right? You want to go out as late as possible. And also the fact that half the points, I think, are going out as late as possible. And the other half is kind of making people bust, but that is, in such a tight game, that's kind of more incidental. And it is definitely more delaying as far as you can and hitting your bid. Those are kind of the 2 axis points you're trying to control. The fact that delaying or hitting your bid really is just to not lose points is evidence that this game is tough. This is a very advanced trick-taking game, very nuanced. So nuanced to the point where I recently played it at T9, and I retaught it, and it had been maybe 8 months, maybe a year since I played it. And after reading the rules and teaching it correctly, I was like, there's got to be something more. Like, I thought I was missing something. But then we played a hand, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I remember. This game is just incredibly, incredibly subtle. And I love it for it. This is, I adore this game, but whew, is it so nuanced. It's crazy nuanced. But I do love the push and pull. I love the fact that you're choosing how far into your hand you want to go. Because sometimes you get hands that are just brutal. Just absolutely brutal. And you have something like this, right? Where you're like, oh, okay, I need to bid high because I have a lot of trump. But how much of this trump section here do I want to go into it? You know? It's cool. It uses that whole can't read or arrange your hand, at least initially, in a really interesting way that I've never seen. And the hook of like must follow and may follow, and that's also your bid, is really fun to pitch to people. But man, is it a subtle, razor thin game. Again, 3 players, not my favorite, just because you have, like, the scoring's a little too low, and you have not as many people going out in front of you, so I think 4 or 5 is probably it. I think 4 is probably my sweet spot. And again, you're going to want to play with kind of trick-taking experts. So with those caveats said, I adore Iyadosu. I think it's a hoot of a time, but definitely beware that your group could extremely bounce off this. I have had many people in my group that, you know, have completely valid opinions and opinions opinions that I trust a lot, and they bounced hard off this one. So I don't know if it's Marmite or if it is a game that you have to play maybe a little bit, you know, get in the right mindset to really get the most out of it. But if you find the right people, I think they'll absolutely have a hoot with that game, like I do. Moving on. Sumida River, the most recent Tokyo Game Market release by Mashikamaru. And I love this game again. I think, again, grain of salt, Mashikamaru is a huge, huge name that I'm always looking forward to what he comes out with. And it's also such a great step in this. I mean, I always try to cover production a little bit first, but in production, like, you sit down at the table and players get choices of which wilds they want, and all the wilds are just absolutely gorgeous. I think they have so much different personality. I mean, you can have, you know, anything from like kind of an anime giant eye to just like a nice fireworks display, or, you know, kind of like a serene walk by the bridge, or whatever is happening at the end there. And also, you can flip it, so it actually tells you what it is, but if you get to know it, you're like, oh, that's red, that's probably the red wild, right? Absolutely wonderful. Similar with the cards that tell you what you can play. I love that either you can have this side, not 100% useful if you don't know Japanese, but kind of useful, because we would play like this just because once you do know a symbol, it actually is like pretty clear what means what and how you memorize that. But also if you flip it, look how clear this is. A run of two sets. Oh, and then the fireworks, and then also, you know, transportation versus like a river, and then just this wonderful art on both sides. So I think production-wise, Mashikamaru, you're killing it. And to the gameplay, oh man, there is just something to this game that I just absolutely adore. First off, the trading of the hands. What? I love this mechanic. It's so juicy. So you're choosing to trade your hand, right? So if you don't trade, you think you got a great hand. If you do trade, you're at least getting a hand that has a wild added to it, whether you trade with someone or you hold on to it and you add wilds to it, right? So technically you're probably going to get a better hand, which is great because you're trying to shit out. But are you going to give a hand that might be pretty good in your hand, the current hand that you have, are you going to give it to someone and get it like, are you going to give someone a good hand is what I was trying to say. Are you going to give someone a good hand? And that's such an interesting decision, because in addition to giving them a possibly good hand, or maybe it's a bad hand and you really, really want to trade, you know what they have. This is like a card counter's big brain paradise, right? You can trade your hand with someone, so you know what they have, and you're going to possibly get a better hand because it has a wild added to it. So juicy. And the fact that the wilds also are, when you do a tiebreaker, you want to have as few wilds as possible. So it kind of incentivizes you to give up the wilds. In a game where you just get a few points here or there, I mean, speaking of Iyadosu, there's not too much scoring going on in Sumida River. You can definitely get ties. I love that tension of a game that could end in ties, and then it pushes nice pressure onto the wild and the trading mechanic. They kind of inform each other. I love that when games do that. There's something also that I love kind of in Scout. I've heard people say, oh, I wish I got points in Scout for not using my Scout and Play token. And I definitely love that doesn't exist. I think players are very min-max in their head, very min-maxy. And if they have a way to eke out points in any way, even at the detriment of the fun of the game, or what the designer wants, or what the designer knows they would have more fun, gamers will do it. So like if Scout and Play would give you points for not using it, I think Scout would be a worse game, because players would not use it and it would be less fun. So getting back to Sumida River, the fact that the wilds are like use them. They actually are good to have used for the tiebreak. Is a nice subtle push at like, have fun with the game, trade your hand, use the wilds, get a better hand, get the person over there's hand who thought that was bad that you can do something great with, right? I love that. Oh, I love design that pushes players to do the fun of the game. Oh, and the 8 different ways to play, so great. I think they're all varied. It was something that I think when you teach it, sometimes players are like, oh, like there's powers or like kind of like abilities on the last 2, and also there's something special about the 3s. Like there's a little hesitancy, I think, sometimes when I teach players, because it might go from like a pretty elegant game to a little like, oh, what's going on here? I think though, once you're in the play of it, it feels so good. It feels like, oh yes, I do want to eventually go there, or I do want to use my wild to go to the 4, so then I could discard and get down to 1 card, and it feels so good. Oh, I'm just gushing. There's like a tempo that is just different than other climbing shedding games. This was, I think it was like the top 5 game played at T9. I showed this to someone the first day of the con, and they showed it to 5 other groups or 4 other groups. And then I talked to someone else who wasn't even in those groups and was showing it to other people. Like, this was highly, highly, highly played, because I think it is so good and so different and so fun. Oh, I love it. It changes how you look at your hand. One of my favorite things in trick-taking games, in climbing shedding games, is when you get dealt a hand, you're like, oh, I have to talk about this. But you can't, right? Because you're about to play the hand. You're about to play it with people. So you take a photo of it, right? And then at the end, you're like, ah, look. I had a moment where, I don't know if this has ever happened before, which is so fun, is someone called me over to show me their hand in this game, and I took a photo of it. And I don't know if I've I probably have, but I don't remember doing that too much. Taking a photo of someone else's hand. Like my favorite thing in trick taking, when I take a photo of my hand, and I do it to someone else's. That's how good this game is. And if you want to know the photo, I don't know if I'll find it, but they essentially got dealt like an entire hand of black cards. Hilarious. So good. And I love that the deck is varied. It's that pyramid deck, so the 10s that are the strongest are more common, but also the fact that there's only 1 red 3 is the start player, so clever. I guess that gets to, not a nitpick, because I played at 3 many times, and I adore it at 3, but I think the game gets a little rules rough when you're trying to find out start player at 3, and you're like, oh, I hope the 3's dealt. There's a lot of cards cut at 3 compared to 4, so I think I prefer it at 4, especially because it is just so smooth and clean, and there's more trading, so I prefer it at 4, but I will gladly play this at 3. It is such a hoot of a game. I am just gushing at this point. What else is there to say? It's wonderful. I don't know. So that's Sumida River, and again, I don't know if you've noticed, I can't really give the seal, but these would do pretty good if I could, is all I'll say. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to hear Candice's thoughts on this, check out the BGG Podcast. She picked it as one of her 5 games to cover, and if she didn't, I was going to. Just because, again, it was so well played. It was absolutely wonderful. But I heard that hook. I was so excited to play, and talking to Mashikamaru about it, I was like, I cannot wait to play this. And he was so humble and so kind when we first met. He's like, no. It's like, don't get your hopes up. Like, it's just a game. But I just want to say, it's more than a game. It's a wonderful, 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 wonderful addition to the climbing shedding. So that's Iyadosu, Sumida River. Definitely check these out and keep an eye on Mashikamaru. I think he's doing wonderful things in the space. I can't wait to play Fano Trick and Trick Pages and whatever he comes out with next. Thank you so much, Mashikamaru. You are a wonderful, wonderful designer, and I cannot wait to see what you come out with next. Thanks so much for watching. Catch y'all later. See ya.